Did you guys hear what Seth Rollins said on Logan Paul's podcast? I have a bit of a fetish, as I'm pulling out the 15-inch dildo right here. That's not what I'm talking about. I may not be the biggest fan of Logan Paul, and for obvious reasons. It sucks that I have to explain it every time, but yes, he does a cool frog splash. Yes, his lariat looks amazing, but yes, he's also not that great of a person. I have to explain every time that yes, I'm a fan of his wrestling. Like, the dude is unbelievable. But my actual guilty pleasure is his podcast. Not something I would normally like I can't find anything relatable between me and Logan and his buddies because they're so different, and it's just, it has that kind of a douchey vibe, so I'm not necessarily interested in the podcast itself, but I love when they actually bring in wrestlers. I think we can all agree wrestling interviews are great in general. Like, have you guys seen these Chris Jericho videos? I can literally listen to Chris Jericho talk for hours, but with Logan's podcast, it's a little bit different. You have a bunch of dudes who barely have any knowledge in wrestling, so it's really interesting to listen to wrestlers actually explain stuff to Logan Paul who's still learning, and also find these moments where you just know that these guys have no idea what the wrestlers are talking about. His podcast with Edge was really enjoyable. Impulsive with Roman Reigns was really enjoyable because we barely seen Roman Reigns talking about anything ever since he became the tribal chief in an interview. And I mean, it's not like the hosts are bad. Logan Paul is really charismatic. Mike has gone through some shit, so it's, also interesting to see him talking with wrestlers about substance abuse and all of that shit. So, it's pretty cool. It's just not something I would watch if it wasn't for pro wrestling. For example, in Seth Rollins' interview, he talked about Dave Meltzer's ratings, which is what I want to talk about today. Seth Rollins mentioned how Dave Meltzer never gave a 5-star match to Kurt Angle, and you can tell. You can tell these guys are like, oh yeah, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle. Yeah, the guy with the snake, right?
Like, Kurt Angle has no 5-star matches.
Well, he didn't actually say that, but you can tell, like, they don't get it.
People out there who think that the Edges is the best.
Are you calling him the Edge?
The Edges.
The Edge.
Yeah, no, I get.
But what Seth Rollins said during this interview is pretty interesting, and I would have to agree, honestly. One of the most controversial things in pro wrestling is Dave Meltzer's match rating.
Oh, God,
matches.
don't get me started on the rating system.
And I've seen him talking about these quite a lot in Chris Van Vliet's videos, where he basically says that whenever people criticize him not giving a 5-star match to a great WWE match, it's like, yeah, but it's 4.5, so it's basically the same, except it's not. So why wouldn't you give it 5 stars, right? I think it's absolutely hilarious that there are multiple wrestlers walking around with 26, 25, 24, 23, 21, 16 5-star matches, and the entire WWE has 18. And like I've said, I don't think it matters that much because it's a one man's opinion. I just find it really hard to believe that we didn't get a 5-star match in the WWE between 97 and 2011. It's stupid, and if you take his opinions that seriously, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Kurt Angle's never had a 5-star match.
Yeah, but he's had tons of 4 3/4, which is basically the same thing. It's just like the little.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it is. I think anything over, to me mentally, anything over 4 is great. And so if you say I never given Kurt Angle a 4-star match, whatever.
No, you've given him plenty of 4-star matches.
But I mean, 5. It's like, yeah. Could you say that the Chris Benoit match at Royal Rumble was a 5-star match? I was pretty damn close. Thought about it.
I will say, whether you call it a 4 3/4 or 4.5, that 5-star is a benchmark. That's a big benchmark for people.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be.
He'll never admit, but he just doesn't like WWE that much. There's been this Dave Meltzer and Seth Rollins beef going on for quite a while now. During the podcast, it was mentioned that Logan Paul versus Seth Rollins received 4.5 stars. And this is what Seth Rollins had to say.
He's great. He's a great historian. He's been a part of the business for a long time. He started with the Wrestling Observer newsletter. That was his big thing. But he's great as a historian, but match ratings are silly. Match ratings are very silly.
Well, it's subjective.
Like
right?
I said, it's so subjective. Like, if it's good, it's good. Like I said, when something's good. I can watch a match on any show on the planet in front of a crowd of 70,000, in front of 20. I'm like, if the people are popping, it's a good time. That's the end of the game. But like, to put star ratings on it, good for you. Good for you. It means very little.
I know many people are going to have different opinions, but I believe Seth Rollins did it in the best way possible. He was very respectful. I think he pretty much nailed it you should respect Dave Meltzer and what he did for pro wrestling, what he accomplished. He's a hardworking man. You can't really hate on that, right? And I believe for the most part, his opinions are probably good. I'm sure he knows a lot more about pro wrestling than I do. I probably have like 5% of his wrestling knowledge. I'm a casual to Dave Meltzer. Still doesn't take away from the fact that wrestling is subjective. You can clearly tell the majority of his 5-star matches involve matches with, you know, a lot of action. And I get that. It's modern wrestling, that's how it works. And it's really, really fun to watch, but I believe some of us really like that drama. You know, it doesn't matter what's necessarily happening in the ring. What matters is that can they actually get the crowd excited? And that's when the match becomes really, really good. A good example of that is The Rock versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania. John Cena said it the best. If you watch that match on mute with no sound, it's horrible. It's absolute dog shit. It's just Hulk Hogan with his back issues. But the crowd went absolute bonkers. You know? That's why the match was so goddamn good. It's two faces of the WWE, one generation against another. Wrestling is really, really subjective. There's someone watching this video who's like, well, honestly, I just like big men fighting. My favorite match in the WWE is The Undertaker versus Giant Gonzalez. Because, two big men. You know, it's fascinating. Never seen something like this before. Two very gigantic men in the ring. And one of them has pubes. Like, how many people in pubes have you seen in wrestling, dude? That's like 2 stars automatically. And then you involve... lots of... And all I'm trying to say... match ratings, just like Seth Rollins said, in general, it's just dumb. It's just really dumb. And that's why I avoid giving ratings to shows or whatever right now, because I'll give my rating how I felt about the show, but that's just how I felt about the show. And then the rest of my audience will disagree with me, just like I'm disagreeing right now with Dave Meltzer's ratings, and I'm gonna get shit for it. So I'm just not gonna bother. People can't help but disagree. I'm going to give 5 stars to Randy Orton because I'm creaming over the guy, just like Dave Meltzer is creaming over Kenny Omega. And in general, I don't think Seth Rollins has that many bad takes. I remember back in the day we all almost cancelled the guy because, well, he defended WWE and said it's the best promotion. What were we necessarily thinking back then? I remember 90% of us, and I'm guilty of this as well, we cancelled Seth Rollins because he defended a company he works for and is a champion of. What? Well, whatever the case may be, all I'm trying to say is, I love listening to Dave Meltzer, his opinions. Whenever I see an interview, I'll click on it. It's really interesting, it's very insightful, he's very smart, it's amazing. All I'm saying is, people using his ratings as an argument is really, really stupid to me. I'll ask you one more time, how many matches had pubes? Answer. Thank you very much for watching this video, The Great One. Peace, love, and hugs. It's been a pleasure.